Hey Roosters, and welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited Leader Spotlight. Again, in today's video, we're going to be going over another leader from the Star Wars Unlimited second set, Shadows of the Galaxy. A couple rules to go over first. This is not a meta-analysis. The cards in this video won't be exactly the most perfect cards to play with each of these leaders. There's just some cool cards that we saw and we thought worked well synergistically with the leaders in today's video. That being said, this is also just an opinion. If you disagree with this opinion, that's completely fine. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, but be respectful. And finally, not every card in today's video will be featured. Not every card that we think is great with each of these leaders will be featured in today's video. There'll be cards that we have to exclude for the sake of time, or simply because we forgot to add them in here. If you have a personal favorite that we didn't mention, please let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to think about and reminisce about what could have been in terms of the synergies with each of these cards and leaders, but also we just like to know what the community thinks because it makes things better for us in the future. That being said, today we're going to be talking about Qi'Ra. She's a character who showed up in the Solo story, the Disney movie, which in my opinion, humble opinion, wasn't as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. That being said, today we have a vigilance villainy leader with the underworld trait. She has an ability action, pay 1 resource and exhaust her. Deal 2 damage to a friendly unit, then give a shield token to it. Also, if you control 5 or more resources, you can deploy her as a leader unit. When she's deployed, she becomes a 0/8 with grit, and she also has, when deployed, heal all damage from each unit, then deal damage to each unit equal to half its remaining HP rounded down. The weird thing here is the wording on her leader ability says when deployed, heal all damage from each unit, then each daily damage to each unit to equal to half their HP rounded down. It doesn't say non-leader unit, and she is a unit once she hits the field. So the timing of this is really important because theoretically, the way it reads just by itself, especially because normally the active player just determines how abilities activate. You could say that she's in play once her ability activates, and then so she can give herself 4 damage immediately and give herself 4 power because she has grit. But timing is really important here. If this ability activates before she theoretically hits the field, then she will not be counted in her own ability, whether you want her to or not. That being said, either way, the game plan for this deck is very clear. Your goal is to deal damage to your own units to give them shields, and then usually have grit abilities so that they can gain more power from the damage you're dealing to them. The point is you want to protect your own units with your shield tokens, and also be completely fine by giving them damage in any form, whatever form that takes with the units. You'll probably be looking at cards that have grit and high health, and basically your thought process here is, well, 2 damage for shields. Shields usually soak more than 2 damage, although sometimes they get pinged off by 1. If your opponent has Saboteur, that's really bad for you. But generally, shields are worth more than just simply 2 damage, and as such, 2 damage for a shield is not a bad trade. Looking at some cool vigilance units we can use with this leader here, we have the High-Low-Bon Enforcer. High-Low-Bon Enforcer. It is a 1-cost 1/4 underworld unit with grit and a bounty that says draw a card. If you don't know bounties, when this unit is defeated or captured, your opponent collects its bounty. So your opponent gets to draw a card when this guy dies, which is really important because you're going to be adding damage to this guy yourself. So him dying is something you want to remember. That is not exactly the best thing to happen for you. That being said, he does have 4 health, which is pretty high for 1 cost, and grit, which means that at some point you could give him 2 damage immediately after you play him. He's going to go up to 3 power, and you can give him a shield token, which again can be worth more than simply 2 damage. So give me 3 damage 1 cost unit, which is nothing to scoff at. Or rather, it is a pretty good trade. I mean, it's not exactly going to set the world on fire, but it is good value. Dr. Paraching is something really cool here. She's a 2-cost 0/5. He can take a bit of damage, so if you want to use her ability on him, it's not going to be the end of the world. And then also has an action ability, Exhaust him. Deal 1 damage to a friendly unit and draw a card. He's going to be a good little draw engine, and he's definitely going to be making his rounds in a lot of decks. But in this deck in particular, when you're playing a lot of units with grit already, a lot of units that want to take damage, the ability to say, I'm going to give the High-Low-Bon Enforcer a damage, draw a card. Now that 1-cost unit's grit is just going straight up, right? So you don't really have to worry about, well, rather, there is consequences for dealing the damage here, but also you get positives out of it as well. It's 1 damage to you, and hopefully 1 damage to your opponent when you swing in with this unit. The Death Troopers are 3 costs 3/3. When you play him, you can deal 2 damage to a friendly ground unit and deal 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. This card saw a lot of play in Set 1. I suspect he's going to do really well as the game goes on because of a lot of the grit abilities going around. Dealing that 2 damage, it also increases whatever you're dealing that damage to. Power will usually be increased by 2 because it'll usually have grit. And you also get to deal 2 damage to an enemy unit. So your output is essentially going to be 4 damage here as long as the damage you deal to your own unit has grit, right? So it's a pretty good effect there, especially in this deck. Embo's an interesting card here, 3 cost 3/4. When this unit completes an attack, if the defender was defeated, heal up to 2 damage from a unit. That's going to be really important. You're going to be dealing a lot of damage to your own units, and sometimes you may have units that you want to stay alive, despite the fact that you've already dealt damage to them and given them shields. So you can't use her ability on them again unless you somehow heal 2 damage from them. So that ability works there. Also, you'll have some other units, although, again, it's a double-edged sword in this case because you're healing units, but also if you're the units you're healing have grit, you're going to be reducing the amount of damage they deal. Scout Bike Pursuers will set 1 card, 2 cost, 1/4. Grit, simply put, he's a pretty cool unit. He's like the Enforcer, except he costs 1 less. Your opponent doesn't get a card when they kill him, so it's really up to you which one you want to play with more here. They kind of do the same. They do the exactly same thing other than that. The Academy Defense Walker, 6 cost, 5/5. It has a Sentinel ability, which is pretty good. Remember, putting shield tokens on Sentinel's units is pretty darn good. Your opponent's going to have to deal damage to them or attack into them, and when they do, they're going to have to knock off that shield before they can actually kill this thing. So it's important there. But also, when played, give an experience token to each friendly damaged unit. You're going to be dealing with your own units a whole lot, so giving them experience tokens is going to be pretty good. It's going to buff their stats by 1. The First Light's a really cool card here. Definitely a card that is meant to work with this leader. 7 cost for 7 grit. Each other friendly non-leader unit gains grit. So basically, you may be playing some units, obviously they don't have grit, but you're probably going to be using her ability on them anyway. Well, now they're going to have grit, and that damage that you deal to them is going to turn to power for them as well. And what's really important is you can smuggle this thing in for 7 costs. The only downside there is that you have to deal 4 damage to a friendly unit. The Distant Patrollers are 2 cost, 2/1, and it says when defeated, you may give a shield token to a vigilance unit. If this thing is tapped out, you may want to kill it with her ability and then give a shield token to a different unit and not have to deal damage to that unit. It's a really weird idea, a weird roundabout way to get things done, but it could be worth it. I mean, I don't know. Covert Strength is going to be something really cool here. 1 cost, 2 damage. Heal 2 damage from a unit and give an experience token to that unit. You can also smuggle in for 3. Again, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage to your own units. Sometimes you're not going to want them to be dying so soon, maybe like the Doctor. And so you're going to have to heal some damage from them, and an added bonus of giving them an experience token as well. Second Chance, 4 cost, double vigilance, +0/+0, attached to a non-leader unit. The attached unit gains when defeated. For this phase, this unit's owner may play it from their discard pile for free. Obviously, unless you're playing double vigilance, you're going to be paying 6 for this. But if you do decide to play double vigilance, you pay 4 for it, and you can say you attach it to your First Light, and that's 4 to get a free 7 cost back. Again, it has grit. You're going to be dealing a lot of damage to it yourself. Through its ability, if you smuggle into play, you'll be dealing damage to other units, right? And the First Light cannot deal damage to itself, I believe. But the point is, you're going to be dealing a lot of damage to other units when you put this guy into play. You're going to be dealing damage to this unit. It's going to probably die sooner rather than later. And so you drop this thing on it before it dies. It dies, and you basically pay 4 to get the 7 cost back for free. Definitely good value. Resilience, a 1 cost upgrade, gives +0 power, but it gives +3 HP. And if you're playing a lot of great units, more health in a lot of cases means more damage anyway. So this is up to really +2 more damage they could possibly be dealing through their grit ability. So it's a pretty cool, interesting option. Not exactly setting the world on fire through powerful effects, but it's definitely something you can think about if you're playing a lot of units that kind of have grit. Also, a lot of units that you're going to be dealing damage to yourself. On to command, the Phase 3 Dark Troopers, a 3 cost 3/3 Sentinel. When combat damage is dealt to this unit, give an experience token to this unit. Now, combat damage does not count as damage through Qi'Ra's abilities, so there's that. But at the same time, it does have Sentinel. It is a command card that is pretty early game, It does like fighting, so giving it the shield token is going to be pretty cool and pretty important. And then also it's a Sentinel unit, so shield and Sentinel always work well together. Darth Maul is going to be a 7-cost unit. He is an Underworld unit 7/6, Ambush, and Overwhelm. On attack, you may choose another friendly Underworld unit, and if you do, all combat damage that would be dealt to this unit during this attack is dealt to the chosen unit instead. You're going to be playing probably a lot of Underworld units, so swinging in with this guy, choosing one of your weaker units that you really don't care if they die or not, and saying, well, he's not going to take any damage back from the swing, this other guy is. Maybe it's going to be another Underworld unit that has grit, maybe. So that's actually going to be a bit of a positive for you as well. The Gamorrean Retainer is a 2-cost 3/2 Underworld unit. While another command unit, goodness gracious. While you control another command unit, this unit gains Sentinel. So basically, you're going to be playing some command units, obviously. So you're going to want to give this thing Sentinel, and there's going to be a pretty cool Sentinel on the field that will protect you as you go on. If you somehow give it some more health, you can use Qi'Ra's ability to give it a shield, or through some other effects and give it a shield. Sentinel and shield always work well together. Pirate Battle Tank, 6-cost 4/6, Underworld, Sentinel, and it has you can smuggle it in for 7. All in all, it's a pretty generic card, but it does have some pretty cool uses. Being an Underworld unit, it works with Maul, but also you can pay that 6 to, or you can deal 2 damage to it to give it a shield token. Then it's a 4-power unit with Sentinel and shields, so it's going to be a pretty cool card on the field at that point. Emperor's Legion is going to be a 2-cost event. Return each unit in your discard pile that was defeated this phase to your hand. Throughout the game, you're going to be having a lot of units die, and you might be the one killing a couple of them, indirectly or directly through Qi'Ra's ability. So that being said, you might as well be able to say, well, I lost maybe 3 units this phase, they all had 3 damage on them with grit, and they swung and they died. I'm going to pay 2 and get each of them back in my hand. At the very least, on the next turn, those guys can become resources or cards you play again. Remember, this doesn't have any cost or power or health level to it, so you can return Maul back from your hand this turn. You can return the first light from your discard pile to your hand if they die that turn. So sometimes, even if you're only getting back 1 unit, that unit can be really important throughout the future of the game. Overwhelm Barrage is a cool card, 5-cost. Give a friendly unit +2/+2 for this phase. Then it gains damage equal to its power divided as you choose amongst any number of other units. You're going to be playing a lot of grit units, so giving them more power. They're already probably going to have a high level of power once you have a high level of damage on them, and you can just throw out all that damage. But another important thing about this effect here is the fact that it gives them more health as well. So that means that this turn, at least this phase, they can take another 2 points of damage before they die, and that means another 2 points of power they can potentially get before they end up dying. So it's a pretty cool card for that reason as well. And then finally, we have the Upgrade Academy Training. It's a 2-cost +2/+2. It's really simple, but it's going to give them more health, more power. It might be something to invest in at a low level, especially if you don't have any really other good upgrade options. We have Drayden Voss, 7-cost 5/7 Underworld, shielded. When you play him, you can choose a captured card guarded by a unit you control, and you may play it for free under your control. Now, this is a generically good ability, so it does work well. It does work in Qi'Ra's game plan. Well, it works in Qi'Ra's deck, but it doesn't necessarily have great synergies with her game plan. He's mostly here for the thematic effect he has between the 2 characters. But it is important to note that you can capture one of your opponent's units that has a really cool ability, with a cool ability like a grit ability or something else like that. That does work with Qi'Ra's game plan. That could end up happening, though you can't really battle on him when you put this guy in your deck. Ultimately, he will put in some decent value for you, but he might be a card that kind of doesn't really work at times and does work at other times. But I had to put him in the video. The Gamorrean Guards is a 4-cost 4/4 unit. While you control another cunning unit, this unit gains Sentinel, just like the Retainer, similar to the Retainer. The Pirate Starfighter is 2-cost 2/4, gain Raid 1. When you play it, return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. And you may be saying, why would you really want to do that? Well, if you're playing some units like Drayden that have cool on-play abilities, that could be a reason. But another good reason is simply the fact that you can play this guy down, pick up a unit that has grit, that is about to die, or a unit with a bounty ability that's about to die, and then they won't end up dying because they're in your hand, they didn't encounter being captured or being killed. Then you can play them back down, put some more damage counters on them or stuff like that, and go back into the game like that without your opponent technically ever killing them, so they don't end up in your discard pile, or they don't get to collect those bounty abilities, whichever one you really care about. Asteroid Sanctuary is a 2-cost card, exhaust an enemy unit, and you can also give a shield token to a unit that costs 3 or less. So you're exhausting enemy units, which is always going to be important, and then you're also putting shield tokens on your own units, which is sort of part of the game plan. Jetpack, 2 cost, 2/0, plus 2 power, plus 0 HP, attached to a non-vehicle unit. When played, give a shield token to the attached unit. At the start of regroup phase, defeat that token. Smuggle, you can smuggle it in for 4, right? So the important part here is that you're going to give it a shield token, then you're going to swing in with it, probably, hopefully. And you're going to get that shield token defeated, and that's really going to be the goal of that purpose there. You don't hold the shield token trying to say, come and get me. Your opponent's probably not going to attack you because they know the shield token will be gone eventually. So the point is, this is a cool card here. If you have a grit unit that's about to die, but you feel like he's an important threat for one more turn, you play this on him, you swing in, or your opponent can swing in too, but you have a shield token, and then, you get that little bit of power and strike and ability out of that one unit before they go away. On to aggression. I think aggression is one of the cool aspects in which Qi'Ra really shines, because grit is an ability that only comes into play with vigilance and aggression. So between those two aspects, that's where Qi'Ra really wants to be. Deathwatch Loyalist is a 3-cost 3/3 grit and overwhelm. The obvious play here is you give it 2 damage, it gets a token, it swings in for 5 with overwhelm, and that's a turn 2 card. It's a turn 4 combo, because you can't really use Qi'Ra's ability and play this guy until turn 4. But you play him turn 3. You play him turn 2. Turn 3, you swing him with Qi'Ra's ability, or so on and so forth. Ultimately, it's a really good card in Qi'Ra's deck, and works really well with her game plan. Kurzantan is a 5-cost 3/7 underworld unit and a Wookiee and a bounty hunter. When you play him, if an enemy unit has a bounty ability, you may ready him. If you want to really go into that effect, you can play some bounty units, bounty upgrade cards. There are some good bounty upgrade cards in general, and if you're going to be really saying, well, I really want this guy, that effect or trigger on this guy, you can go into that. But we're really playing him for second ability here. On attack, choose the ground unit. You may deal 1 damage to it for each damage counter on this unit. Obviously, you use Qi'Ra's ability, and you swing in and you deal 2 damage before the attack even starts. And obviously he has 7 HP, so he's going to be around for a little bit. And at some point, it's very likely that he can swing in and deal 6 damage to a unit and you can swing in and deal 6 damage to a unit before his attack even starts. Just clear out most units in the game. So it's a really cool ability. That works really well with Qi'Ra. The Covetous Rivals is a 6-cost 6/6. Grit again, so that's really the reason why you're playing them. But again, if you want to go into the bounty game plan, you can. When you play them, and also when you attack with them, you may deal 2 damage to a unit with the bounty ability. The Occupier Siege Tank is a 5-cost 5/4 grit, and that's really all there is to it. You deal 2 damage to it. It has plus 2 power. It swings in for 7 with a shield token. The Ruthless Raider is a 6-cost 4/6. Doesn't have grit, but it says when you play it and when it's defeated, you can deal 2 damage to an enemy base and 2 damage to an enemy unit. The important thing here is you can use it when it's played and when it's defeated. So you're not going to be too afraid of this thing dying, because you're going to get an effect out of it. You're going to use Qi'Ra's ability on it sometimes, deal some damage to it, and eventually it's going to go down sooner than it would in most other leaders' decks. But you're okay with that, because it's going to give you an effect when it dies. Fifth Brothers is a 3-cost 2/4 Imperial Force and Inquisitor. This unit gains raid 1 for each damage counter on him. So obviously you use her ability, he gains raid 2. It's not grit, but it's the second best thing. And then also he said on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit, and deal 1 damage to another ground unit. So obviously you swing in with him, he's going to take a damage, but that's going to increase his raid effect, and then he's going to deal another damage to another ground unit. Between Qi'Ra's ability and his own ability, he will be able to swing in for his max power naturally, which is a raid 3, and then he can swing in for 5 and deal 1 damage to another ground unit. Obviously at that point he'll only have 1 HP left, and he's probably going to go down after that. Desperate Attack, 1 cost, attack with a damaged unit, it gets plus 2 power for this attack. This effect is not very good. If you're going to be using, there's multiple better options in this, but it does have some face value synergy with Qi'Ra, so I figured I added it into today's video. Given to Your Angers is a really interesting card, but I think Qi'Ra is one of the best decks to utilize it. One calls deal 1 damage to an enemy unit. Its controller's next action this phase must be an attack action with that unit if able, and it must attack a unit if able. So first off, you essentially lock them out of their next action. Well, obviously use your action to lock them out of their next action, but whatever their planning was before with that last unit, it now becomes this. So if they could, okay, that unit could theoretically swing into your base and kill you. So you're in a tough spot. You play this, now they swing into your unit, if they can, obviously. And then you get to claim the initiative, and maybe you can work from there, right? But there's another important part to this effect. It's the fact that they must attack one of your own units. And your units are probably going to be grit units with high health and are usually high power through their grit effect. They swing in, or maybe even shields. They swing in, their unit can just get incinerated by your unit, and your shield token falls off. And that's obviously not going to be optimal for them. And then they also lost their unit. And then you claim the initiative, and the next turn, they're down a unit. You have the initiative. Again, you can work from there. So it's a really cool card. I think it's going to have a lot of good uses in a lot of different decks, but I think Qi'Ra is an interesting deck that can be found use in, so I figured I'd add it here. Finally, let's talk about some cool villainy cards. You have the Ruthless Assassin, 2 cost 3/3. It's an Underworld card, so any Underworld abilities you may be playing works well with that. It also has the Overwhelm ability. When you play it, deal 2 damage to a friendly unit. It has Overwhelm, and when you play it, deal 2 damage for a friendly unit. Again, that's a negative for its amazing stats and ability. But generally, you're going to be fine dealing damage to your own units if they have grit. And so you can go from there. And finally, Cellbot Guard. It's a 3 cost 3/3 Sentinel. You deal 2 damage to it. You attach a token to it as Sentinel's token. It's the generic bread and butter. On to the aspectless cards. You have Lady Proxima. 1 cost, 0 power, Underworld. 4 HP. When you play another Underworld unit, again, you might be playing a totally Underworld deck, which I wouldn't be surprised if you were. You may deal 1 damage to a base. You can deal 2 damage to this unit with Qi'Ra's ability to give her a shield token. Obviously, she doesn't have grit, but putting a shield on this unit would be pretty important, because you can activate her ability multiple times throughout the game. If she survives for multiple phases, and you get to play maybe through ultimate total of like 3-4 shield Underworld units, then she can put in like some pretty good value for her cost. And then you have the Street Gang Recruiter, 5 cost for 4 Underworld. When you play him, you can return another Underworld card from your discard pile to your hand. You're going to be playing a lot of Underworld cards, but more than that, you're going to be dealing damage and killing a lot of Underworld cards throughout your own effects and through the battles that they take with other units. So you're going to have some cool units that you have that die, and you're going to probably want to get them back. Maybe a Darth Maul ends up hitting the kid's discard pile. Maybe a First Light ends up hitting the discard pile. This guy's going to go and get them out, and it doesn't matter how big their cost is, right? And he's a 4/4 body after that. And that's going to be it for Qi'Ra. Qi'Ra is an interesting leader unit. I think she's going to be something that people really like. She's going to be probably a fan favorite, especially if you look at Krennic, who has a similar sort of game plan of grit abilities. Ultimately, I think she is going to be something that is picked up and tinkered with quite a bit, but her deck and her game plan has a very straightforward answer. You play the grit units. That's kind of what you want to do here. Everything about the card just tells you to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that, because grit is a pretty cool effect, and I think a lot of people are excited to use it more and utilize it more than they were able to in set 1. Krennic was definitely a fan favorite leader, and she has his same aspect symbols. So every trick Krennic she has pretty much, other than the fact that she's not an Imperial. But she has Underworld tricks to play off with as well. So you can use First Light probably a little better, maybe, than Krennic could, but it kind of works the same in both decks. The point is, I think she's going to be really cool. Technically, she's already out, so I'm sure a lot of people are already having fun with this leader, and I can't wait to see what comes of it. But I hope you guys come back for more Star Wars Unlimited Leader Spotlights in the future. We have, again, more videos rolling out pretty much daily at this point, so I hope to see you guys then. Well, that's going to be all for now, but if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and watch some of our other videos that we've made on this channel. Also, give this video a like if you thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. And I hope to see you guys back at the Roost.